My name is Steve Butler for Access 8 Television. On behalf of all the volunteers at Access 8 Television, I'd like to welcome you to a special presentation this evening, a phone-in for the handicapped. I might advise you all at home to grab a pencil and paper, keep it right next to you in case you have any questions that you would like to ask of our panelists this evening. We have telephone numbers that will be available to you where you can phone in. I'd also mention that possibly for posterity's sake, you may want to get your VCRs warmed up, stick a blank tape in, and make a copy for yourself so that you can view this at a later date. The reason why we at Access 8 Television got together with this idea on a phone-in for the handicapped was basically for one particular reason: to provide a forum to you, the viewers at home, of qualified people, not only at the local and county levels, but also at the state levels, whereby you could phone in and on a one-to-one basis be able to ask a question of a person who can give you an answer tonight, this evening. We also hope to establish in the future, after tonight's program, a two-way dialogue between those of you at home that may have handicaps or know of someone who has a handicap with some of the panelists that we have up here this evening that you'll be meeting in just a moment. We would hopefully tonight, we would like to get our message across as to what the handicapped want or what the handicapped need, and that's up to you, the viewers out there, to let us know this evening. We would also like to make all of you handicapped people this evening aware of what already has been done at the state, at the county, and at the municipal level, so that not only can we become aware of your problems, but we can make you more aware of some situations that are available that possibly could help you with some of the problems that you may have. We also, hopefully, when we wrap up this evening, would like to be able to, in summary, let you folks out there at home that possibly have handicaps know what can and will be being done in the future for people with handicaps. And basically, this evening, ladies and gentlemen, we're dealing specifically with physical and mental handicaps. Obviously, the term handicapped or disabled covers an awful wide range of situations. Please don't let that wide range of situations stop you from calling tonight. We feel we do have qualified panelists up here that can help you. So we kind of feel that the success or failure of tonight's program is basically being left up to you, the viewers out there at home. I'd like to thank you for tuning in. I hope you have your paper and pencil ready, and if necessary, I hope you have your VCRs turned on. What I'd like to do right now is to introduce one by one the panelists that have come together here this evening for our Access 8 Television special production. Those panelists, one by one, will be letting you know what their particular area of expertise is relative to handicapped or disabled situations. So without further ado, I'd like to look over and introduce one by one our panelists for this evening. Our first panelist is Donna Miller. Donna is from the Western Orange County Center for Independent Living. Good evening, Donna. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'd like to thank you for coming down tonight.
My pleasure.
Maybe in a nutshell, you could let us know very quickly what your organization does, the Western Orange County Center for Independent Living.
Sure. Very briefly, we're a non-residential, community-based information referral and direct service provider to people with disabilities. Basically, we service the Western Orange County and Sullivan County areas, and we'll represent people who have all types of disabilities, be they physical, learning, or mental. What's nice about our services is they are offered free of charge to persons with disabilities and their families. Some of our services include independent living skills training. We will offer architectural barrier consultation, housing assistance, advocacy, including both economic and educational, as well as benefits advisement, peer counseling. We have an interpreter reader service, and we also have an accessible van with a lift and offer transportation. We believe, really, that persons with disabilities are entitled to the same rights and freedoms as non-disabled counterparts, and we're dedicated to allowing people to go as far as possible based on their disability rather than them being hampered by their disability.
And how long have you been involved in this situation presently with that group?
I've been involved with the Western Orange County Center for the about the past year, and been in the field of independent living for the past 3.5 years.
Well, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. Our next panelist, seated on Donna's left, is Ray Haley, and Ray is with the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. Good evening, Ray.
Good evening, Steve.
And specifically, what does the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation get involved in?
Steve, we're primarily involved with vocational guidance and placement of individuals with this disability. Could be of any age, a full range of disabling conditions, including mental and emotional conditions and physical handicaps. All ages of people, and people can be referred by all manner and source of organization, whether it's an independent living center or a school district or a physician, very often a rehabilitation facility or a clinic. We're involved in vocational counseling, medical evaluation, training, whether it's short-term or long-term, on the job, either sheltered or for permanent competitive positions. From time to time with physical restoration and home and vehicle and van modification and job placement.
In some material that I've read, Ray, it's my understanding that one of the main priorities of any state or local agency relative to the handicapped is to try to provide employment to them. I think I read in one of Greg's pamphlets that one of the main goals is to mainstream people who have disabilities, to actually empower them, to get them out into the workforce. Is that something that your agency would be involved with?
Certainly. I think that the disability really is equal opportunity, and any one of us at some point during our life cycle may incur a period of disability. But depending on age of onset and the type of employment one has, or whether it's pre-establishment of a career, the type of assistance one needs may vary greatly. So certainly job placement and permanent adjustment to competitive employment is always our goal.
Good, good. Okay, seated immediately on Ray's left, our next panelist is Greg Jones, and Greg is with the State Office of the Advocate for the Disabled. Good evening. How are you, Greg?
Fine, thank you. How are you doing?
Good. Now, I told you I could only give you a minute now, and you told me you'd like to speak for about an hour on the importance of your office. We'll have plenty of time for that later this evening, but feel free, in a nutshell, to let us know what your agency is involved with.
I work for the New York State Office of Advocate for the Disabled. I'm an associate counsel there. I'm one of 2 attorneys on a small staff. We work with OVR, we work with Donna, we work with a lot of other agencies and independent living centers throughout the state. We have a wide variety of services available to people with disabilities. Very few people even know about our office's existence. I'd like to take the opportunity right this minute to give out our toll-free number, because it's probably one of the best numbers that you can call if you run into a problem. I would try it first. The number is 1-800-522-4369. I want to repeat it one more time, 1-800-522-4369. In the course of the conversations that go on tonight, you may think that I am the one that you're going to want to talk to. When you call my office, don't ask to speak to me necessarily. Talk to the girls that answer the telephone. They have a computer service with about 4,300 different referral agencies on it, and numbers and people that can assist you. If it turns out that you do have a legal problem after consulting with them, they will put you through to me. We will try and work out some kind of arrangement whereby I can refer you to a proper governmental agency that can help you with your problem. I will caution you, we do not handle individualized cases. It's an unfortunate situation that exists in the state of New York and elsewhere in the country, that it seems that the disabled population are caught betwixt and between. Either they have too much money to be able to get legal aid, or they make or they can't afford to go out and get their own lawyers, and usually they're in the lower spectrum of the income level. At least I can give you some direction on some free assistance. We also have numerous 800 numbers that we can give out to you, so that you don't spend a lot of time and a lot of expense on telephone bills.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you this evening.
I hope so.
Seated on Greg's left is Mary McPhillips, and Mary is the Assemblywoman from the 94th Assembly District. Welcome, Mary. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
I wonder if you could take a minute and let us know possibly what you or your office can do to assist people disabled or handicapped.
Well, as everybody knows, as a state legislator, I'm elected to represent the people of the 94th Assembly District, and we are concerned about people who have disabilities. In fact, we look at legislation, we look at various agencies and see the policies that they put in place. But besides that, we're out there to create an awareness. And in fact, in Albany, we have an awareness day where we get into a wheelchair and try to get to our office so that we can understand better how difficult it is to wheel around in a place like the state capitol. And it's a rude awakening. And I think it's very important that people, when they have the opportunity to do something like that, they do it, to understand how we sometimes place these people at a real disadvantage, and they don't have the opportunities that we expect that everybody comes to have.
I bet that's an interesting day in Albany, Awareness Day.
We're never on time that day.
I'd like to mention to the home viewers out there that also the Handicapped Commission in the city of Fort Jervis is also having an Awareness Day. That day is November 18th, whereby local politicians will assume a handicap for the day, just to add to their awareness of handicapped situations. And I'd like to thank you for being part of our group tonight.
My pleasure.
Seated on Mary's left is Pierce Bunce. Some of you viewers may have seen a production that Access 8 Television ran a few months back on wheelchair basketball. That was produced by Pierce Bunce. Pierce is with the North American Wheelchair Athletic Association. Good evening, sir.
Nice to be here tonight.
Glad to see you again. What kind of success have you been having with your association as far as fundraisers for the handicapped or adding awareness to people's minds relative to handicapped?
Well, that's what we actually do. It seems like we turned out to be more of an awareness awakening group than anything else. And I believe that's the focus of America, to be that way. Our group actually started out of a need for children to have a role model. And what we've done, we've brought people together that have different disabilities, and we go into school systems and do a workshop for the day. And the nice thing about it is, all the kids see that, well, my friend's in a wheelchair, but we just played basketball with someone who beat us pretty bad. And that was the neat thing about it. And that was the desire to get it going, and that was in 1984 that it was founded. And to this day, it still goes on, but as you all know, funding is the key. And to get funds, it's very hard to do. We need to get corporations behind us, have more wheelchair basketball awareness where able-bodied people get into the chairs, as we did over here in Matamoros, and it was neat.
That particular piece of tape, ladies and gentlemen, you'll be seeing a little bit of that wheelchair basketball game that was held in Matamoros at the conclusion of this broadcast this evening, so please stay tuned with us. I remember we were sitting in the director's room editing that piece of tape, that more of the able-bodied people in wheelchairs obviously were having a lot more problems than the handicapped people. I mean, they were falling out of the chairs, and the chairs were falling over, and even that makes a point in and of itself, doesn't it?
But they also had fun.
But they had a lot of
They
fun.
had
A lot of fun.
Yeah, really.
Thanks for being here tonight, Pierce. On Pierce's left is a local fellow. Many of the viewers at home probably recognize this gentleman's face. Ted Blair is with the Deer Park Lions Club. Ted is also the Lieutenant Governor of the Lions for New York State. Ted, welcome.
Nice to be here.
Now, I think specifically, if I'm not mistaken, the Lions Club deals with people who have problems with vision. Is that correct?
Basically, I'm here to represent tonight 2 Lions projects and 2 non-Lions projects, but I am involved deeply with all of them. One is the Empire State Speech and Hearing in Spencer, New York. This is a nonprofit organization for all of New York State, and it's a one-on-one ratio. It's the only summer camp for the blind, or the speech impaired, in the United States. The only totally vocational summer camp. Others are recreational, and we do have a lot of recreation, but this is a magnificent camp in the respect that it's total vocational. I also am here to represent Vacation Camp for the Blind in Spring Valley, which is a camp for sightless people. Also, the International Federation of the Blind, which is a lobbying group for the blind's needs. They put out monthly newsletters and do everything they can when we talk about access of buildings and so forth. They do a great deal with our United States legislation. And also the New York State Library for the Blind, which may be the best use of tax money that I have ever seen, because any magazine, periodical, book trade magazine can be obtained through this organization, plus recreational reading material. I think my prime purpose in being here tonight is I'd like to challenge, especially the listening audience, to call in and give me a better name than handicapped. because that name doesn't ring true, simply because if a sightless or hearing impaired person were to apply for a computer programmer's job, and that sightless or hearing impaired person were above average intelligence, which, by the way, is not hard to find. If they were to compete against what we, in quotes, call normal person of average intelligence, who now becomes impaired, who now is handicapped. And I really don't feel that a number of these labels that we put on as such as handicapped should be there, because they're different, but they do things in a different way, and they're magnificent people.
We saw a program that was on one of the commercial network stations about a week and a half ago that dealt specifically with differently abled people.
Right.
And I think I much prefer that term. It's something that I'm having a little difficulty getting into my vocabulary on a regular
Right.
basis. They were doing various artistic endeavors, and the program was extremely moving. I'm not sure that's the whole point. I don't think they wanted the audience to sit back and cry.
Right.
I think they rather wanted to show people that are differently able being successful.
Well, when I attend the vacation camp for the blind and see the magnificent artwork that they produce, it's awe-inspiring, because we don't normally think of art such as paintings and porcelain, and it's magnificent. I couldn't do it.
Well, I want to thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
I also will add to your challenge to our viewers out there that they get on the telephone and call in with any question they might have relative to handicapped situations. Immediately on Ted's left is a gentleman that I think should be getting a lot of telephone calls this evening. Bob Weiss is from the Social Security office in Newburgh, New York. Bob, good evening.
Good evening, Steve. How you doing?
Good. I hope I didn't scare you by mentioning that you may be one of the busier people on the panel this evening.
Oh, you sure did. Anyway, I am from the Social Security office in Newburgh. I'm not going to talk a lot about our programs. I think most people have some sort of familiarity with our programs regarding retirement, survivors, and Medicare. Our disability benefits program, we do have available through the Social Security and SSI programs to people of any age unable to work due to a physical or mental impairment of a long-term nature. The Health and Human Services budget is the fourth largest in the world, and Social Security pays out a tremendous amount of money. Of course, to pay that, we collect a tremendous amount of taxes. Just for your viewing area, Steve, for the city of Fort Jervis and the town of Deer Park, we paid 3,500 people approximately $1.5 to $1.75 million a month in benefits. 10% of those, or about 350 people, collect disability benefits. Nationally, about 7% of our beneficiaries receive disability. However, that's not to say that doesn't get that much attention, because this class of beneficiary represents the most individualized and exhaustive service that we perform, because more so than any other type of claim, the disability claim is the most unique and the most individual of all programs. This is very important, because this is one aspect which very few people plan for. We all wake up in the morning ready to go to work. All of us are sitting here tonight absolutely sure what we're going to do 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. And for some people that just doesn't happen that way, and if people ask if we're going to be there 30, 40 years from now, I always answer yes. I'll always answer, we'll also be there tomorrow, or next week, or next month.
And I think those are some points well made. Did you say 3,500 people just in our viewing area receive
That's
disability
Fort
checks?
Jervis and town of Deer Park.
Well, I'd like to hear from about 300 at least of those 3,500 people that are out there. I'd like to thank you also for coming tonight.
Very happy to be here.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there you have our panel members. I'd like, in the audience, maybe we give them a big round of applause for coming tonight and for being with us. What I'd like to do is just to mention to you viewers out there again, we will be on the air live hopefully for at least the next 2 hours. If you have any question relative to handicapped situations, as I said earlier, whether you are handicapped or whether you know someone that is handicapped, please call in. You'll see the numbers flashing on the screen. I'm going to give you other numbers that you can call right now, so if you have a pencil and paper, as I said earlier, try to write this down. The numbers that you can call this evening to get answers from this distinguished panel that we have here for you folks are as follows: 856-5666, 856-6911, or 858-8585. Very quickly again, those are 5666, 856-6911, and 858-8585. Obviously, by handicapped, we don't only mean someone who is in a wheelchair or has a mental or emotional handicap. I'm certain we have a lot of senior citizens that are watching at home that may just have minimal problems getting around the area. We'd also like to hear from you. We're not trying to put any limit on the kinds of questions that you folks would like to call in and ask us. We will try to answer every single question that does come in. So I have given you the numbers. I'd also like to mention that we have TTY, TDD numbers for those people that are hearing impaired. If you are hearing impaired and need to benefit from the TTY or TTD, the number that you can call, the relay number, is 1-355-2060. Once again, TTY or TTD relay number 1-355-2060. And that leads me to a very smooth segue, and maybe camera one could pick up our two interpreters this evening. We have two ladies that will be here all evening interpreting questions and signing them with the answers. I'd like to introduce Mary McLean. Hi, Mary. And also Kathy Pelis. I think I have those names correctly. So let's keep those ladies busy also this evening. What we'd like to do right now, while we're waiting and anticipating your phone calls, we would like to run a little bit of videotape for you on problems that handicapped people may have. Certainly this will not include all the problems that handicapped people have, but it's some video that was shot locally around town just to highlight some of the more obvious situations that a handicapped person may run into. We're going to run that videotape, but don't forget, you viewers at home, please call in with your questions. We have operators here that can answer those questions. Get them up to me, and we will ask them of the panel members. So right now, I'd like to cut to this videotape on problems that handicapped people may have. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back after the video. But we're back live, ladies and gentlemen. As I said before that piece ran, that hopefully pointed out some of the problems that handicapped people have with inaccessibility of certain areas. As I mentioned, we certainly can't cover all the problems that handicapped people have. That, I think, is a broadcast in and of itself. But we hope that that little highlight stimulated some questions that some of you viewers at home might have. Again, as I said earlier, you can phone us. We're down here at City Hall in Port Jervis live right now. We have a panel of qualified people to answer questions that any of you folks out there with any kind of handicap or disability might have that would be important to you in your life. The numbers that you can call us are 856-5666, 856-6911, and 858-8585. So let's get those telephones ringing. While we were away, we did have some questions that did come in, and I'd like to throw these out. I guess in general, unless the viewer specifies a certain one of you, what I'd like to do is maybe just throw the question out on the table. And if any of you feel you have the response, just pick it right up and we can take it from there. This is very informal. If you want to challenge an answer that's given, add to it. Feel free to do that. There are boxing gloves in the back and things get a little feisty here. One question that came in has come from, and I will mention to the viewers out there, we're not using last names, so you won't be embarrassed. Your telephone voice will not be used live over the air. We are writing all the questions down so that I will present them. We're only using first name only. So if that helps, call in, please. I'd like to throw this out to anybody. This comes from Lee in Bullville, New York. And Lee's problem seems to be that certain public service facilities, for example, a fire department, a police department, a hospital, they do not have TTY or TDY numbers. In case of an emergency, according to Lee, there is one relay number in the state of New York. And in an emergency, they would have to call that relay number. Why can't all facilities, or at least these public service facilities, have TTY numbers? Anybody want to take a shot at that? Greg?
Well, as a matter of fact, I believe there's a law that's going into effect that is going to require that a police department, hospital, or other municipal services in a community be tied in with their own TTY or TDD machine. They are going to be allowed to share them, share that equipment. And I can't give you the specific dates of when that has to be done, but there is law in the books for that. Secondly, there is the state TDY, TDD machine or system right now that's in effect in the state of New York. You can call that number, and they will then in turn relay that information to whatever number you want to call, and basically act as an interpreter between the hearing impaired and whatever office you're trying to reach. So that system is in effect right now in the state of New York, and I believe there's also a federal legislation that's going to mandate that be done federally. Mandate that AT&T or whatever companies all tie in together so that you can call not only from New York State, but to California and use the TTY, TDD system that we have in New York State. So there is, in fact, that system in existence.
Do you know if there are plans at the state level to tie that into a 911 situation?
That's a good question. I really don't know the answer to that.
And so far, what we see is individual communities or counties going into 911 on their own, but not necessarily a whole statewide system. I hope I'm right on that, keeping up with our legislation here. But that's, and that number, I don't know whether it would be appropriate to give out that 1-800 number, but it's 1-800-662-1220.
And that number is what again, Mary?
1-800-662-1220. And it's called the Free Ombudsman Hotline.
Okay, yeah, because the 911 situation is, as you pointed out, specifically adopted by counties or municipalities as opposed to entire states.
Right, and a lot of times you run into problems because you have different, utilities, different telephone companies that you're working with. In fact, I think for Orange County, that's one of the holdups they have is the different utilities that are involved in the county and bringing it all together.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely an important positive step that should be taken.
Mm-hmm. Is there a fireman on the panel? A local fireman? Is there a local fireman in the room? Do we have a fireman, please? I was just wondering how that's handled presently, because I have no idea in an emergency situation locally, if there is a fire or anything, or someone needs an ambulance, how that would work. Okay. Well, that's something that we'll try to research and possibly get a better answer to later. We have another question, and it's a general question. It's from Shirley in Port Jervis, and Shirley has asthma. She can't breathe in public buildings where smoking is allowed, and she names certain retail establishments locally to the city of Port Jervis, which I will leave unnamed, but they have smoking areas located too near the non-smoking areas. There's in one situation, I presume there's a restaurant area, and there's no booths separating the smoking from the non-smoking, which certainly could be a problem with somebody that has a respiratory type disease such as asthma. I guess Shirley's question is what can be done either at the local level, state level, either to try to isolate these things more severely so that there isn't a problem, or what is being done possibly at the state level to do away with smoking altogether in public places.
Well, I'll tell you, doing away with it entirely in public places in the state will be very difficult. We just passed a very good anti-smoking bill this year. It goes into effect very soon, and in fact, if you have a local law that's stricter, we do not override the local legislation. But one of the biggest problems is the smoking lobby. You know, they're up there trying to say that people should have their rights too to be able to smoke where they want. And I think what we have to do is do a little sensitivity awareness on that issue too, and help segregate smokers from non-smokers. And it could be a petition, because currently we do call for a division, and even in different restaurants, it depends on how many people you can seat. But we are trying to say that people who don't smoke, and especially people who may have asthma or some kind of problems breathing, could be adversely affected. And I think it takes a lot of sensitivity on the part of the owners to try to not only comply with the law, but go a little bit further and make it comfortable for those people.
Was I correct, Mary? Did you say that there are certain county and state regulations, but that if the local regulations in the municipality are harsher, then those are the ones you wouldn't override theirs?
We did not override counties that had a more stringent anti-smoking law. We were concerned about a lot of counties that did not have any, and so we're saying that if Orange County's anti-smoking bill were more strict than the state's, then that is the one that takes effect.
So then possibly the answer to Shirley is to put a little pressure on your local legislators if you feel there still is problems in your area, and see if they can possibly either enact more severe legislation or do something to remedy a particular situation.
You can do that, or I don't think there's anything wrong with going to the restaurant owner and mentioning the fact that this is a real problem for you, because these people are in business, and obviously they want people to come back again. And I think today it's not rare that you have people complaining that they have difficulty breathing.
That's probably a real good idea, especially if the restaurant owner comes out to meet you with a big cigar in his mouth, to handle your question.
You have a problem.
Okay, in literature that I've read, I've noted that according to recent statistics, that there are over 43 million disabled Americans in the United States. So we're really not talking about a small minority of people. Typically, one of the responses that I've heard within the last 3 or 4 months is, why all the attention to the handicapped? We're only talking about 3 or 4 people in town. Why should they get all this attention? We have other problems that are more severe. Now, that 43 million disabled Americans in the United States, that statistic comes from the Congressional Research Service. I've also read that in a typical community, and Port Jervis is certainly a typical community, that 10 to 15% of a total community's population, and this is made up of all ages of citizens, are handicapped or disabled. So we're talking, we're talking a large number of folks and not just 2 or 3. Greg, I see you're dying to get something said here. Take the floor, please.
I'll tell you, I hate sitting down. I like walking around and talking with them. You raised some interesting figures. That represents about 20% of the population. the critics are going to say, well, what constitutes a disabled person in that number? And that is a question that we have to ask ourselves. Let me toss you out some other statistics, though, that are probably more, will strike a better note. 1 in 4 individuals that are presently employed are going to become disabled either permanently or temporarily during the course of their employment. That is, they're going to break their legs skiing, they're going to fall off a ladder painting their house, they're going to have some other disability. The workforce, the present workforce right now by the year 2000 is going to be over the age of 60. That is going to bring on the normal infirmities of old age. We're going to all become older, unfortunately. People are sitting in this room here today, Ray. We're all going to get older. We don't want to, but we will. And we're going to suffer the infirmities of old age. What is the reason why we should be stopped just because we're elderly, we move a little slower, from being able to get into the mall, to do our own shopping, to go to the library, to come to City Hall? Why should our life come to an end? I think those figures are very important to keep in mind, that when we start talking about money spent today on modifications, ramps, what have you, these things aren't just for other people. These are things that are going to be used by you and me and everybody else, and it cuts across every barrier. You can walk out of here tonight and be hit by a truck, and that's the end of that. And you need the ramp tomorrow. So disabilities pick. They have no preference. They'll pick on anybody. And I think this is all to our benefit to be concerned about our fellow man and ourselves.
Are there any statistics possibly that any of you panelists might have on disabled or disability at the county level?
If I may, just to sort of build on a little bit of what Greg said, to touch on some of it. The population is aging, the workforce is aging, and I think Ted mentioned the Social Security disability claim. And as we get older, the incidence of disability inevitably rises. So it's an economic investment to have services available to individuals to help them reintegrate or remain in the workforce. The cost of providing somebody disability benefits over the course of a normal working life or longevity far exceeds the cost of rehabilitation services. But I think it goes a little bit beyond the trends that we're looking at. With technology improving, with access to computers and microwave technology, the brain and the ability for an educated individual to function, irrespective of some of the barriers that our world creates, will be surmounted, hopefully in the not-too-distant future. And there's an increased need in industry to make greater use of the potential of many people who are cut off currently from the workforce. And I think these things tend to make a greater market for the potential that's locked within the minds and bodies, in some cases, of our disabled population who are at home. And I think the final thing really is medicine. Fortunately, with some improved medical care, more children who previously would not have survived are now surviving with some degree of disability. And we need just not to allow people to live, but to act in a positive way to integrate them into the workforce and into our society in ways better than we have in the past. And I think those are all reasons why we need to look at a very large portion of our population that will be disabled at some point. And that 43 million figure gives you a sense of the massity of the problem at a particular time.
And I've heard, and I've certainly heard it from handicapped people or differently abled, that they feel that they are probably the most singly discriminated against minority in the United States today. It takes all minorities into consideration, but and I'm not talking about race minorities, obviously, either, because as Greg pointed out, disabilities don't know race, they don't know age, they don't know job employment, anything like that. Thank you. That's some good information. Yes, Ted?
I'd like to add something to that. As we in society go about trying to alleviate the stone walls that these people come against, it is imperative that we don't set out to do this totally on our own, that we include these people to advise us. And the tragic example was in New York City under the administration of John Lindsay. They chose to put ramps in for wheelchair people, and they spent countless millions of dollars doing this. The sad part was, seeing eye dogs were not trained to distinguish ramps. They knew about curbs. And now we got a new problem at that point where the seeing eye dogs would go right out into the street without ever stopping. And they have retrained the dogs at this point, but there was a classic example where we took someone who was non-ambulatory and solved their problem and created a whole new problem for the sightless. So that we must not try to do this upon our own. We must bring in the experts who are the people with the problem or with the different way of life. But we should, by all means, as we said about our goals, make sure we include everyone so we don't create a lot of new problems for them.
And a point well made and a point well taken. I'd like to just expand on that a little bit. I know one of our members here at Access 8 Television and one of the executive producers of tonight's program, Doris Hammond, has been involved on 2 occasions with a building that's being renovated currently in town, and I think we can leave that unnamed. But she was called down by the person who was in charge of the renovations, ultimately in charge of them, to check the bathrooms. And they just wanted to make sure that the door was wide enough that a wheelchair could go in. Well, obviously, once Doris got down there and they checked, her mobility within that particular physical situation, it was totally wrong. I mean, the paper was way over here and this was way over there. And I will say that consequently that gentleman has taken Doris's recommendations to heart. They have been changed with the architect, and I think the building has now not only been made up to standard, but made up to realistic and logical standards anyway. Okay, I'd like to move along with the questions if I could very quickly. I have a question for Bob, okay? This is from Jim from Huguenot. Jim has been on Social Security for 3 months and would like to know about Medicare Part A and Part B. What do you have to do to get it? Wait. Typical response from a state employee. Wait, a bureaucrat.
Well, no, Social
I'm kidding.
Security benefits begin with the 6th full month of disability. When Medicare kicks in after a person has been getting disability benefits for 2 years. So beginning with the 3rd year, the person will automatically be enrolled in Part A and Part B of Medicare. The exception for that is chronic renal disease. If someone goes on dialysis, they would pick up Medicare almost immediately.
Now, the first 6 months of disability is not carried by Social Security. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you can only apply for Social Security after you've been on disability one form or another after 6 months. Is that also correct?
That is not correct. There is a 5-month waiting period, and Social Security picks up in the 6th month. First of all, Social Security is a long-term disability program. In New York State, all employers, or virtually all employers, I guess agricultural employers are an exception, I'm not exactly sure on that, but they carry temporary insurance on their employees. In fact, employees will see a 30 to 60 cent a week deduction from their paycheck, which covers 26 weeks of disability benefits. Most states carry or require that kind of coverage on their employees. Many employers far exceed the state minimum. There is a waiting period. Most people do collect some type of disability benefit in the interim for that 26 weeks. Ours is long-term. As far as our criteria is concerned, you have to have a disability that's expected to last more than 1 year. There is no waiting time requirement to file the claim. All we say is wait until the indications are clear that the disability is going to last more than a year.
Would you recommend that if someone is going to come over to your offices and make application, or to any Social Security office, and if the stipulation is that the disability has to last more than 1 year, that they bring a note from a doctor or a specialist verifying the condition? Would that
No.
speed things up?
Not really. We make our decisions independently. The most important thing they could bring are names and addresses of their doctors and the types of treatment they've been receiving. The disability decision is made by our own independent medical panel. The person is not necessarily examined by our own physicians. In fact, we don't have our own physicians per se. We do things on a contract basis. We will compile medical records and medical testing. A medical decision is based on a person's symptoms, based on medical observations, and based on laboratory findings, and the regulations regarding disability are written up as such. We will go out and we will pay and obtain copies of test results, medical evaluations, and we will take a statement as to what a person feels their own limitations are. Based on that, a medical team consisting of a physician and a couple disability examiners will evaluate it, compare it against the regulations, and make a decision accordingly.
Would you recommend that if someone has just recently become disabled, and that person feels that their disability, and I'm talking a recent disability, something that's just been diagnosed, might extend longer than 1 year, would you advise them to immediately file or to wait that 26 weeks and file in the 5th or 6th month?
We advise people to file as soon as they believe that it's going to last more than a year. The questions on early filing, I'll give a couple of examples. Like with a heart condition, if a person has a heart attack, they generally won't make a decision until 3 months have passed because nobody knows which way it's going to go. With a stroke, if somebody has a stroke, they won't make a decision for, say, 4 months because, for the same reason. Nobody knows which way it's going to go. In both those cases, some people snap back, some people don't.
Are you recommending they file immediately then?
As soon as they believe that, and they have good reason to believe in consultation with their doctor, that it is going to last over a year.
Good. Thank you very much. I have a question for Mary McPhillips. This is from Laura from Port Jervis, New York. Can a disabled person get a reduction in taxes when they are not a senior citizen? And Laura, God bless her heart, she confided that she is 43 years old. The question again, can a disabled person get a reduction in taxes when they are not a senior citizen?
I don't believe so, and I would have to say that I want to check into that, but unless somebody else here knows, we do have the senior citizens taking places, but at this point...
Their best advice then would probably be, since most taxes are either...
she's talking about property taxes.
Probably either property tax, county tax, or a school tax. Greg?
Property tax is one exception. If you are putting in an addition, let's say, to make a facility accessible to you, if you use a chair or what have you, and let's say the bedroom's on the 2nd floor, and now you become disabled and you need to have a bathroom on the 1st floor and a bedroom on the 1st floor, we just got a ruling from Taxation and Finance that those items are not susceptible to additional assessments, local assessments. But you don't get any break on income tax, state income tax, no other taxes, as Mary said.
Okay. I have another question for Mary.
And by the way, one thing.
Yes, sir.
The local governing authority has to enact, pursuant to a state law, an act of local ordinance to give that tax break. So if your local community has not done that, then you can get assessed the full valuation for those additions. That could be grab bars, etc., that really don't add to the value of the residents necessarily to non-disabled people. So in the disabled community, if that local ordinance doesn't exist, I would certainly encourage that you approach your local municipal authorities and have that ordinance enacted.
I would also like to add there, and that's good advice, Greg, that not only contact the local authorities or the local politicians in the area, but also here in Port Jervis, there is a commission for the handicapped that meets the second Tuesday of every month at the Farnham Building, which is handicapped accessible. And possibly that is something, in conjunction with getting the local politicians involved, that particular person could contact the Handicap Commission and maybe get something accomplished through them as well.
I have one more point. Those are on taxes. Section 190 is into the revenue code. If you're approaching a store or a business, let's say, that is inaccessible or that you're going to go to work for and you need special equipment, there are some real tax advantages through Section 190 of the Internal Revenue Code that makes it very advantageous for a business to make renovations, to put in ramps, to widen doors. So they may not be inclined to do it for sympathetic reasons, but when it comes down to dollars and cents, they may give it a second thought, and I would point that out to you.
Good. There's a topic that I think we're going to pick up a lot more on this evening. I have a million questions myself, but I'm opting for the viewers. But if the phones get slow, I'll throw a couple out.
I'm not an expert.
Another question for Mary McPhillips. This is from Marion from Port Jervis, Mary. And Marion has a friend who has been in a wheelchair for 18 years, and she suffered that through a building collapse here in town. She gets workman's compensation and Social Security, and maybe Bob wants to pick up part of the answer to this also. Her question is, or her complaint or comment is, that she still gets the same amount from workman's compensation as she did 18 years ago. She ain't got no increase in her pay. Is there anything that can be done about that, Mary?
Yeah, I think just the fact that she calls in to let us know that she's out there and that we haven't had a significant increase. Workman's compensation, to be honest with you, is one of our difficult problems. We have had long delays. We have a lot of people still waiting. And let me just say that it's the awareness again for legislators to go to the chairperson of the commission to talk about what's realistic, and for the legislature then to try to do more. Again, I just want to say that creating commissions, and this is something that's very important, because those people that are out there bring us these very difficult problems that they really don't have any answers to, lack of money. And I'll ask, if you have anything to add to that.
Bob?
Well, I could say is in terms of the Social Security disability, it is inflation protected, and cost of living increases do go through each year. But Social Security is meant to be approximately a third replacement of lost wages. So it's the third of that income that's inflation protected. The program is intended to be supplemented by other means, be it pensions, workman's compensation, job disability benefits, what have you. It's unfortunate that some of these aren't inflation protected. I know workman's compensation, the whole system was designed to speed up the process, to alleviate the loads of civil courts. And over the years, it seems like it hasn't worked out that way, and it's caused some people some problems. But as far as our benefits go, they are inflation protected.
Good, good. That's a comfort, I'm sure, to the people of those 3,500 in our viewing area that received those checks. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to remind you all that we are down here live at City Hall in the city of Port Jervis, that we are having a phone-in for the handicapped this evening. We invite you viewers out there to pick up the telephone, to call down to City Hall. We have the numbers flashing on the screen, and I will give them in just a moment. We have a terrific cast of certainly qualified panelists that are involved. Very quickly, for those of you who may have just tuned in, I'd like to just give you their names. We have Assemblywoman Mary McPhillips from the 94th Assembly District here to answer your questions. Greg Jones is with the State Office of the Advocate for the Disabled. Donna Miller is from the Western Orange County Center for Independent Living. Bob Weiss is from the Social Security Office, whom you just heard from. Pierce Bunce is from the North American Wheelchair Athletic Association. Ray Haley is with the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. And Ted Blair, Lieutenant Governor of the Lions for the state of New York and also a Deer Park Lion, is here to answer any questions you might have on sight and or hearing impaired situations. And as I said earlier, you don't necessarily have to be recognizably handicapped to phone in a question. Some of you senior citizens that maybe have a knee problem or a hip problem, and it may only flare up temporarily. If there are certain situations that you would like to call in and ask questions about concerning your temporary disability, please feel free to do that. The numbers that you can reach us at tonight are 856-5666, 856-6911, and 858-8585. And if any of you have a hearing impaired situation, you can call our TTY number. That relay number is 1-355-2060. And that call will be relayed back to us. And we have two interpreters, as I mentioned earlier, that will be here to respond to those questions. They are Mary McLean and Kathy Pelis. So let's have those phones ringing. Hopefully we'll be able to answer all the questions that you have this evening. What I'd like to do right now is cut to another little portion of videotape that we have that deals with some of the problems handicapped people have parking. Obviously, this would be a 45-minute videotape if we covered every parking problem, but we hope this videotape highlights some particular problems that might arise in parking situations. And we will be right back, I would think, in about 4 minutes after this video is concluded. Please call during the intermission, call anytime. Okay, we'll be right back after this segment on parking and the handicapped, so don't go away.
people using handicap spots who are not supposed to be in them. We have a perfect case right here today. The person is blocking a handicap curb cut further down here where I'm going to try and go on. I'm going to have to ask the person to move. If that person was not in her car, his or her car, I have to wait until they actually came out of the building and then ask them to move. I'm going to go down the hill now. The situation we have here is that there's a handicap parking space, but it's not wide enough, right? And largest. Yeah. You could get out, but if this car was over any further, I couldn't get any further that way. You'd have a problem. Excuse me, do you have a handicap sticker? No, I don't. Thank you. Get it? Yeah, right. You know? But if I was a handicapped person... and you beep your horn, I move my car. Oh, okay. Providing you have a sticker or plate that says handicap. But I might not realize that, right? Huh? I might say, oh, crap, that spot is taken, and I'll go on and... Yeah, see, certain things you got to use your own judgment, you know. And if I park my car here and leave it, that means I'm not even considering the fact that it's a handicap spot. That's true. But if my wife goes in the store and I'm sitting here, I can always move the car, you know. That's correct. You know, so it makes a big difference. I think so. Yeah, I think it does make somewhat of a difference. It makes a big difference. Okay, thank you very much. You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, by that particular piece of videotape that we just ran, that not only are there all kinds of problems that handicapped people have, but there's all kinds of excuses that able-bodied people have for parking in handicapped spots. As you can also tell by the mosaicing that we did on the license plates, our intention tonight is not to embarrass people. We're not here to put you on television showing you parking in a handicapped spot. That's not the intention. We're trying to present this situation this evening in a very positive environment. And that's why we had the mosaics included there. I think some of those situations probably were particularly amusing at home, but we hope that it helps create an awareness of situations that handicapped people have and that able-bodied folks will do their darndest to try to help out, especially relative to parking. What I'd like to do right now is to get back to our panelists. The phones have been ringing. We have an awful lot of questions that we're trying to get through, and we do have some other videotape portions that we will be presenting as the evening rolls along here. So if I could, I'll turn back around and mention the next caller is Stan. He's from Port Jervis, and he's directing this to Mary. And the question is, handicapped parking throughout the state. Very apropos, and I didn't plan this way. The spots are not properly marked, or they are not wide enough. Whether the state has any plans to put into effect a handicap law that would specify the right width and would also be properly marked. Mary?
You know what, I am going to turn this over because although we do create the legislation, a lot of times implementing the legislation means that an agency will, specify the footage and everything. And do you know the answer to that, Greg?
Greg, you want to pick that up?
Well, good, because he's working.
Where's the Mary's a thinker. They think of these things, and they put it together, and then there are others in state government that act as enforcers and interpreters. The building code in the state of New York, anything handicap parking spaces put in after January 1st, 1984, are specifically supposed to be specifically designed according to ANSI standards, which is the American National Standards Institute, and that has specific dimensions on how wide the space should be, how big the separation between the spaces are, how high the signs should be, what color they should be, etc. There are also laws regarding how many handicap spaces have to be at specific shopping centers. If there are more than 5 stores, there have to be a certain number, and they graduate on a percentage basis of the number of particular retail outlets, what have you. So yes, there are specific specifications for handicap parking spaces.
Okay, now, as a follow-up to that, I believe there was legislation entitled the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And Boy's got his papers shuffling already. Here we go. And if I'm correct in understanding this, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 addressed a lot of accessibility problems that handicapped people have. It was also in the spirit of that legislation that they gave municipalities 10 years to bring all of their buildings into compliance, which would mean that by 1983, municipal buildings had to be in compliance by law, not by wish or desire, but by law. Well, we all know that today is September 18th. It's the year 1989, and I've been around enough in the county to know that not all of our municipalities provide this. The floor is yours for a few minutes, sir.
The rest of you can all go home now, because I'm ready now.
We have a lot of questions, so I just ask that you try to keep this summarily. Give your telephone number if they have to call you for further advice.
The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 is amended basically into effect in late 1974. What that did was it mandated, specifically 504 is the most important in general terms for people with disabilities. What that said is that any organization, partnership, corporation, governmental agency, what have you, that receives any type of federal funding, be it direct or indirect, had to make certain guarantees to the federal government regarding accessibility standards. I'm going to address municipalities because that's an important area, and I'm sitting in a building now that's totally accessible to my way of thinking. And I was thinking about the Social Security office, which is downstairs. I was going to say before what says on the sign outside, don't try to get there because you can't get in there. What happened was, there was, I'm trying to think of what the funds that were given to municipalities several years ago, and I've lost the term, revenue sharing funds, thank you, ma'am. Revenue sharing funds. Under revenue sharing, basically every municipality received any revenue sharing funds had to make guarantees to the federal government. One of those guarantees were that they would do a self-evaluation of all their facilities and programs and find out what was accessible and what was not accessible. Then they were to do an implementation plan which said what we're going to do about these problems and when we're going to solve them and how we're going to solve them, etc. This law went into effect about 15 years ago. What I get today, and right from this building, what I get, is we don't have the money to make those renovations. If the law went into effect last year, I'd have a little bit of sensitivity to that, because I know the money's short. You've had 15 years to plan for this. If you put $100 away a week since the law went into effect, you would have built up an annuity right now where in Fort Jervis you could have had everything accessible. So to say we don't have the money today, I think is a really poor excuse. That law also says that any municipalities that receive that have more than 50 employees are also supposed to have a 504 coordinator. My guess would be, and I'm not going to guarantee it, my guess would be that Fort Jervis probably does not have a 504 coordinator, a technical one. In fact, if you call the local number down here and ask for the 504 coordinator, more than likely they would say, what are you talking about?
Now, this problem is not just specific to Port Jervis.
No,
I imagine other municipalities throughout the state have this same situation.
I'm picking on Port Jervis because I'm here. When I am in another municipality, I pick on that municipality. what I'm trying to say is that we all have to work together. The law is the last thing in the world that I like to start waving around. When I go out, it's more important that I try and make people, try and sensitize people, try and converse with people. Consideration is an important thing. When you get down to the bottom line, if you can't get people to listen or get them to be sensitive to their needs, then I guess you pick up the law and you start waving it around. And what it takes is a complaint. You have to complain to the federal agency that actually did the funding. Now, on the revenue sharing, although revenue sharing stopped 2 years ago, and a lot of people, a lot of municipalities felt that the obligations on the 504 ended at that point. They did not. I talked to the Justice Department 3 weeks ago. They are very interested in hearing about municipalities that still have inaccessible municipal buildings, courthouses, things like that. They will come in, do an investigation, and we'll prosecute those cases. A lot of things can happen. It can cost a municipality a lot of money. If a municipality receives...
Excuse me, can I jump in there for a second?
Sure.
Because you said a magic word to me, and that word was money. Obviously, here in the city of Port Jervis, I know there are plans in the works right now for renovation that would include accessibility to the municipal building and also to the court. And I also know that the Handicapped Commission here in the city of Port Jervis can also be used to possibly help that situation become a reality. But now we're back to the magic word, and that word is money. It's 1989. These things possibly, not only in the city of Port Jervis, but in many municipalities throughout the state, have to be brought up to spec according to the law.
That is correct.
Now, where? Because all these viewers are sitting at home watching and listening, and they're saying, my goodness, taxes just went up. The school portion of the taxes just went up in our area by in excess of 40%. I'm in the real estate business myself, and I know that that's been a terrific, terrific burden to a lot of people. How is something like this funded? Does it come out of the taxpayer's pocket?
Essentially, that's what's going to happen. There are certain areas where some of that can be built in. Hospitals that receive Medicare patients have to be accessible and have their programs accessible. That's also built into their rate structure. Now, the rate structure in the state of New York is approximately 2 years behind. What a hospital is being paid for Medicare today is actually the rates based on 2 years ago. Hospitals can figure in the cost of sign language interpreters, other repairs that they need to make their hospitals accessible. And as I said, when I started hearing the argument of money, this is something that, go back to your city fathers who were in power 15 years ago, who made the guarantees to the federal government that they were going to make these changes. There should be an implementation plan someplace that said how they were going to do it then, and ask them what happened.
Was that a requirement by law, that implementation program, that had to be supplied along with an application for funding? Is that correct?
That's correct.
So that would exist in a municipality?
Should exist.
Thank you. In your travels throughout the state of New York, and I understand your office is in Albany, New York.
That is
You've come down today from Albany. You get the trophy, I think, for traveling the farthest today. But what is your experience throughout the state with other municipalities as to their compliance with that Rehabilitation Act, or lack thereof?
I would say that the majority of municipalities are not in compliance.
Okay,
quite honestly.
So,
I will say this, though, my conversation with the Justice Department, this may scare your city fathers, and I'm leaving after this show, so I don't want to worry about it too much.
but you gave your number out early, so they know where they can reach you.
Is the Justice Department, when I talked to them about 2 weeks ago, they were basically saying they want people to report specific cases of non-compliance. They're looking for cases. I know that Port Jervis right now receives HUD block grant funds, so you do receive federal funding at the present time. So you can go to 2 different places. You can go to HUD, and you can still go to the Justice Department under the old revenue sharing. And all it takes is one complaint, and they will come in and investigate. And as far as HUD's concerned, they would cut the funding right off if they found that there was a violation. There are a lot of heavy-duty things that can happen to a municipality. Obviously, that's not their intent. and it's not my intent. I think we should all be working together to try and solve the problem rather than looking for people to blame and people to punish.
Well, that's almost, as you mentioned, they can create a situation whereby possibly the municipality might not receive the funding. Well, that's almost like the mouth that eats itself. There are certainly things that have to be accomplished here in the municipality that possibly that funding would be lost. So it's almost like we're losing two ways. You know, the handicapped aren't getting what they need as far as accessibility, and the city fathers and politicians in an area aren't getting the monies that they need. And I know you're going to go back and say, yeah, but 15 years.
They promised it 15 years ago to do it.
But those people might not even be in the area, some of those legislators. You know, so what would your advice be for a common council of a community who is not in compliance? What would your advice be to them?
I would try and start out with getting together with the disabled population, with the powers that be, and working out a priority list of what are the main problems, and where do we have the most demand for accessible locations. Work on those, try and pick up the ones that can be met cheaply, and believe me, walking in this building today, I noticed a lot of things. At least you can get into the first floor of this building fairly easily and fairly inexpensively with a ramp out front coming in from the side. So there's a lot of things that you could do cheaply. As part of 504, there was an out. And the out was that you could make your services and programs accessible not through structural accessibility, but by actually moving the program. Let's take the social service or social security office downstairs. A call comes in, a person can't get to that office. Social Security would have the obligation then to send somebody out to a house possibly, or meet them in a parking lot. I ran into an interesting situation. The tax assessor's office up here is on the second floor. I ran into a tax assessor recently who took it upon himself to one afternoon every week, he would take all his documents, all his maps, all his materials, down to his van in the parking lot of City Hall, because his office was inaccessible, and meet, and basically sit in his van and meet with people who could not get to his office. Now, he did that on his own. Those provisions in Section 504 obviously were stopgap provisions because it wasn't expected that the day after the law went into effect that you were going to spend $1 million to renovate and retrofit your building. What was expected was that you would make plans to make those services and programs accessible, and then with the implementation plan, you would have a timetable set up as to when you would make those structural changes necessary.
Good. Okay. I understand you could probably chat on this subject for a lot longer. If anyone has to reach Greg Jones, I'm sure we'll be giving telephone numbers out at the end of the broadcast. You can call and get more information. I thank you for that response, Greg. And I'd just like to summarize by saying that if any of the viewers at home have a problem, as Greg pointed out, contact the Handicapped Commission, which exists here in the city of Port Jervis. That Handicapped Commission can help to develop a priority list, or contact your local ward representative or the mayor or the councilman at large here in the city, and let your priorities be known to them, and hopefully over the course of a very short-term future we can remedy some of these situations that do exist that are problems for the handicapped. Okay, moving right along. We got a call from Henry from Port Jervis for Bob Weiss, and Henry, Bob, claims that the doctor's excuse, and we were talking about Social Security and Medicaid Part A and Medicaid Part A and Part B, that the doctor's excuse must be within 1 year, not 3 months.
Well, I want to reiterate what I said before, that it's not a doctor's excuse. You make an independent medical decision based on available medical records, including any testing that may have been done. Our disability standards have been developed, and they're continually being reviewed by teams of physicians that are contracted centrally in Washington to look at our standards and see what meets the definition of disability. When a disability decision is made, they get the tests that you have had through your own sources, your own doctors, your own hospitalizations, and compare it to the regulations, the standards that have been set down by medical panels. In that way, a decision is made there. It is nothing to do with having a doctor's note at a 3-month level or at a 6-month or at a 1-year level. Again, we invite people to apply at the point they believe that their disability is going to last 1 year. If they're unsure after a month or two, then wait until they are sure. Of course, some people have conditions that they know right away. are going to be very long time. But if you're unsure, wait until you are sure, and by all means apply right away. All you need to bring with you medically are names and addresses of your medical sources, because we will be obtaining thorough accounts of evidence.
Good. I'd also, for the viewers out there, I would also like to clarify, there was a question relative to exemptions if you are disabled or handicapped, and one of our viewers called in and said that, yes, you can get a tax break if you are a disabled veteran. I believe, and I'm not sure either, but I believe that is the typical veterans exemption, and I'm not sure whether or not the disability has anything to do with it. I think the fact that you are a veteran. Donna, I see you.
Right, the exemption that you get for being is based on the fact that you're a veteran, not the fact that you have a disability.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Good. Okay, moving right along. We have a question for Ted Blair from the Lions Club. Ted, this is from Charlie from Port Jervis, and Charlie asks, school bus drivers, taxi drivers, law enforcement people, they should all be made aware of what the white cane law means. And this, I think, gives you a good springboard to jump off on that for a minute.
Absolutely. Within our state, we have very adequate laws. However, they should be reaffirmed and adapted by the city. For those of you who would like to write it down, unlike Greg, I will give you the law. It's McKinney's Consolidated Laws of New York, Book 62A, Article 27.
Maybe you'd like to repeat that so they can write that down.
This is out of the New York Reference Table Law. McKinney's Consolidated Laws of New York, Book 62A, Article 27. It states unequivocally that anyone carrying a white cane with a red tip, now this is an elongated cane, it's not like a standard cane, has the right of way. I know of instances right here in Port Jervis. There's one lady, I am told, her cane was knocked out of her hand by a vehicle. Anyone who accomplishes this rather tricky task is in violation of some serious laws.
Okay, I'm driving down the street in my vehicle. There's no stop sign, there's no traffic light, there are intersections, but I have the right of way.
Right.
All of a sudden, on the corner, out of the corner of my eye, I see a cane with the tip and the whiteness on it stick out right from the sidewalk, pointing across the street. What do I do?
If you're on top of her, those people don't move fast enough for you to hit them at that point. They realize that no one's going to stop immediately. But a raised red tip on a white cane means stop. They have the right of way, whether there is a crosswalk or whether there is not. Incidentally, McKinney's Consolidated Law was amended in 1973 to include guide dogs. If in absence of a white cane there is a guide dog leading them, they too have the right of way. And I would like to see in Port Jervis and other surrounding communities that once a year a proclamation be made either by the mayor or the council reaffirming this law so that people understand it fully. It is very difficult for me to believe that there are drivers that do not understand that this is a very serious point for someone who cannot see. And you needn't, again, be blind. You have to be legally blind. And those people, some of them can see just barely enough to get by, but they can't see oncoming traffic. The law also goes on to state that anyone impersonating a blind person is in violation of the law. No one is allowed to use that white cane unless they are legally declared blind. And if our communities or our municipalities would reaffirm this law, implement the law, I don't know if it has to be enacted by our city. It is a state law, and I would like to see that something be made public about this. And I know the gentleman that called, and there are a number of others that have spoke to me about it. Unfortunately, we haven't done a thing about it, and the public are not aware that this happens. I ask everyone out there who needs this service, write to your city council.
I'd like to mention to the viewers at home who can't see our audience that there are council people in the audience, and I think they will take you up on that challenge, I hope, Ted. There is also representation here from the Handicapped Commission, and I think if someone could write to both of those groups, that possibly this could be done as you mentioned.
I would like to add to the white cane law that it is also a law in New York State that a guide dog or a hearing dog may be allowed, is allowed in any public building or private building. They cannot be exempted from restaurants, libraries. If it says no animals, that does not include a guide dog. These dogs are very well trained, and they cannot be kept out of any public access building.
Ted, where can someone with a sight problem get a guide dog?
There are no less than 3 organizations serving our area. My advice, and this sounds like a commercial, but my advice, rather than get into a lengthy list of addresses, would be contact your nearest Lions Club, because that is one of our paramount concerns, and they can be obtained. They're very well done. We have 3 associations serving this area now. They're very, very expensive, and that's why I say go through the Lions Club, because if the need is there, I think I speak for most Lions Clubs. If you need it, we'll get it for you.
Do you have a telephone number while the viewers are listening right now for the Lions Club?
I don't have the phone numbers, but in Port Jervis, Roger Starzan is the president of the Port Jervis Lions, and Bernard Shippey is president of the town of Deer Park Lions.
And I'm almost certain, but I would imagine those numbers are listed in the telephone
Absolutely.
directory.
And
Okay.
any lion can put you through that track, to take track of that.
Good. Thank you very much.
Steve?
Yes,
Can I
great.
say one more thing to that? Is absolutely right. Service dogs, hearing dogs, and state-ride dogs are admitted any place, basically in the state of New York, and cannot be excluded. That's in the Civil Rights Law of New York. An interesting story happened, I say any place, because there was a story about 2 months ago where a potential father, wanted to be in a delivery room with his wife, and he was blind, and he wanted to take his state-ride dog into the delivery room with him. At first, the hospital said no. They finally condescended to let him bring the dog in. The dog ended up throwing up twice. But it does prove the point that the law in the state of New York now is that you can take them virtually any place and not be denied admittance. We'll see what happens when we get into the trained monkey situations that we're involved in. The service monkeys that you may have seen may present some other problems, but as things stand right now, those types of dogs are admitted virtually any place.
And there are hearing dogs now also.
Good. Well, I thank you for sharing those stories with us. And while we're on the white cane law, there was a bit of humor, and certainly there has to be humor, I think, in a handicap or in a disability, because if there's not, I think the quality of life is just going to deteriorate much too quickly. So one humorous story that we heard putting this program together, we were interviewing people with certain handicaps, and a gentleman that is legally blind and does have a white cane mentioned that he was in a certain area, to be unnamed, and he made a complaint at the local police department, and he said, these people around here, you policemen have to make people more aware of the white cane law. He said, I was trying to cross the street, I stuck my cane out, car came by and almost knocked me over, and the officer said, well, next time that happens, just get their license number. Okay, a general question we have, and this is from Ann from Port Jervis. Feel free to respond. Ann mentions that she was injured 50 years ago, and she wants to know, why does she have to get a certificate from the doctor when it is very plain that she is disabled? Anybody want to take a run at that one? Bob?
Well, when you say it's very
I
plain,
presume it's relative to funding or some monies that she would receive.
I'm assuming that. All I can say is that some people may be obviously handicapped, but programs are not arbitrary. I certainly can't say that I'm expending federal dollars based on what I think of a person, what anybody thinks of a person. There are standards that have to be met. Standards have to be documented. It's not just disability. If for an income tax audit, you have to be documented. When someone comes in for retirement benefits and they say they're age 62, that has to be documented. Disability is a lot more personal, but it has to be documented. And again, it's not a certificate from a doctor, it's a compilation of evidence. It's rough, especially in the Social Security area, because you have handicaps and you have disabilities. And there is a distinction, because when you talk about handicap, you're talking about a loss of function. When it comes to Social Security disability, you're looking at what's left. You're looking at the residual capacity and seeing how that person's capacity relates to their ability to work. And besides the medical records, we will be looking at a person's age, education, work experience. All these factors are considered when making a disability decision. So there's no magic word which creates a disability or does not create a disability, et cetera.
Okay, so actually the documentation is a positive thing, because through that documentation, your claim can be handled more quickly, and hopefully you'll be getting your money sooner.
Yes.
Good, okay.
Steve, if I may mention too, I think at times people ask that as they apply for vocational rehabilitation. Very often the need for current medical assessment or evaluation helps to clarify the extent of residual disability, and it might well lead us to areas to help them to compensate, whether it's through physical restoration or through additional medical care that may not have been available or may have been unknown to them at the time of their injury. So it's not just designed as a bureaucratic delay, which I think many people feel. We have something called interim eligibility, which allows people to immediately qualify for a service. It's really designed to be used to avoid a delay where it's going to take some months to get a complete medical evaluation, which could be used where somebody has an obvious impairment where there's no question about the extent of their disability, and we would like to proceed with service.
Well, good. Thank you for clarifying all of that. We have another question that is of a general nature. This is from Jean in Sparrowbush. And Jean's question is there any way to get rent reductions if you are disabled or handicapped?
Yeah, yes, there is.
Donna, maybe you want to pick this up, Donna Miller?
Sure. It's depending on your income and your disability, there's Section 8, which is a federally administered program, which will allow, as long as you make under a certain income, your amount of rent is based on your total income and what you are able to pay. There's also HUD housing, which offers reduced incomes to people who have a documented disability. The biggest problem with living in like a rent-subsidized housing is that the demand often way exceeds the availability, and there are waiting lists. There's applications that you have to fill out that have to go to the different Section 8 coordinators and the different HUD coordinators. So it takes a while to qualify and get on. Then you're usually placed on a waiting list, and then depending on the type of housing you need and when that becomes available is when you qualify.
Now, there are, I'm sure, telephone numbers and local directories for the offices on...
Section 8, it's listed right in the phone book, right under Section 8.
Okay.
One phone call, they mail you the application, you fill it out, send it back, and then the process gets started.
Good. Thanks very much, Donna. Okay, Cindy Butler, who is with our Handicap Commission, mentioned that locally here in the city of Port Jervis, that is done through the Community Development Authority, and they are located... Okay, call City Hall and ask for the Community Development Agency, and they can help you out with subsidizing your rent or Section 8 housing. Okay, thank you. Another question from Harvey in Port Jervis. Port Jervis High School. Have a ramp to the auditorium, but no curb cut. Why not? I'm not sure if any of our panel members would like to comment on that. My advice would be that if relative to that situation, I think the best thing to do would be to get in touch with the administration at the high school, if I'm not mistaken, and let them know and make your recommendation known. You also possibly might be able to contact the Handicap Commission here in the city of Port Jervis. I'm not sure what effect they might have on situations out at the high school, which is in the town of Deer Park, but I'm certain by a telephone call they can make your problem more known to them out there. It says if that can be done, please put a sign there so that no one parks by the curb cut. Okay. This is a question for Mary McPhillips. This is from Sharon in Port Jervis, Mary. If someone is injured and goes on compensation, sometimes it takes 1 year. They become worse waiting for the approval. Why does it take so long, and what holds that up? I'm not sure that should be addressed.
We at a state level have, we've done hearings on workmen's compensation. Legislators are just as discouraged as some of the people and the stories we hear. The process, I think, it becomes a real burden on these people, and Sharon's absolutely right. A lot of times in that time frame, people do get worse. What we try to do is see what the big holdup is, and try to push the chairwoman now of workers' compensation look at individual cases faster. And so a lot of times I will say to people, call my assembly office and let me see if I can find out what the holdup is here. And that doesn't always work. Now, I'll be frank with you and tell you that it is a system that is it's under a lot of difficulties. There's a lot of time lags and a lot of problems. And my colleague, Assemblywoman Barbara Patton, at this point is the new chair, and I think she's done a good job. But she went into a situation which is very difficult. But it's our job to try to let the chairperson know that in this area we have a lot of people who really need the whole process to be speeded up.
Well, hopefully, not only through assistance from your office or other offices throughout either the county or the state, but also programs like this. We hopefully, if this program goes well, and I think it's going terrifically so far, we plan to make this videotape available to other municipalities so that they can use this or even put it on their public access television station to carry the message of awareness throughout the state. And maybe that would have much heavier influence on people that do make the laws or respond and make sure they're being enacted correctly.
So, sometimes I guess it's a lack of legal staff or people not being able to get compensation lawyers to handle their cases and adjournments and delays. And there's a lot of things that enter into this, I think. But the awareness, again, I hate to simplify this whole thing, but the bottom line is that when people come together and say that there is a problem with this system, it helps us in New York State begin to say that we have to do something about this. Too many people are losing out. And
Right.
So
Establish a priority.
absolutely.
I have a question of my own that I'd like to ask. What can be done? Take someone who's on a disability, and it's something brand new to them. It's not something that they were born with or have had 30 or 40 or 50 years. It's something that maybe happened 3 months ago. There is a dilemma of repayment. There are insurance companies out there that lose forms, that drag their feet on responding to an application for a claim, whether it be a hospital claim, to try to get repayment. They have the insurance, whether it be Blue Cross, Blue Shield, whatever major insurance carrier. I personally have the feeling that a lot of insurance carriers drag their feet on purpose if it is a disabling situation that will last forever. It's extremely upsetting to someone like me. Doctors' offices that don't handle things that are mailed to them fast enough. Consequently, the disabled person is shelling out the money until they get reimbursed, and that reimbursement period sometimes can stretch out to 6 months to a year. If they don't have the money to shell out and be repaid by the insurance company, what typically happens is their creditors start to chase them because they're not paying their credit card bills on time. They're not paying this bill on time because they're waiting for payments to come back in. It's annoying, it's frustrating, it's bureaucratic, and sometimes it's downright rude. What can be done, and I'll offer that question to any panel member, what can be done with insurance carriers who don't do their jobs and doctors' offices who don't process their paperwork quickly enough so disabled people can get repayments to medical situations that they've already gone through?
I want to say, first of all, that again it goes back to an advocacy group and a coalition, and I have found with children with learning disabilities, we have found that when the parents get together and they form a strong coalition, they then develop advocates for themselves that go into some of the difficult meetings with new parents to kind of walk them through the process. And I would suggest that this is the kind of thing that could be done here, and possibly with Donna Miller's help through the Centers for Independent Living. And I don't mean to throw more jobs on her, but I think the bottom line is the advocacy and then the coalition. And that, again, can help all of us identify where the weaknesses are in the whole system. But you do have to be that squeaky wheel all the time. And the more people you have saying this is a problem and we want somebody to do something about it, that is very helpful. And a lot of times it's getting that coalition together that really makes things move.
Good. Thank you. Greg?
I can't emphasize enough the idea of the strength in numbers. I had a senator that I talked to one time in the state of New York that said, what do you want me to do about this? I've gotten 3 calls in 2 years from disabled people. I have no interest in it. And why should I do something that's going to have an effect on my other constituents when I got 3 calls from 2, that's 3 votes. And a lot of them look at it that way. So there's definitely a strength in numbers. There is something you can do in some instances regarding insurance payments. You can call the insurance department of the state of New York. You can file a complaint. There are certain timetables where insurance companies have to either pay or deny a claim. A lot of them play games with that time frame. You can't do anything about your own doctor not sending the forms in, obviously. There's nothing that really controls him. But if you are finding that he is sending the forms in and you're not getting paid within certain time frames, you can call the insurance department. Having worked for an insurance company as house counsel for a number of years, I can assure you that they don't like those complaints and they will act on them, and the insurance department will likewise take action on them.
Okay, now in my experience, and this is, I've earned the right to speak about this, you mentioned accept or reject. So you put the heat on the insurance company. They have 2 options at that point. They can accept or reject. To live within the guidelines or the timetables that have been established to regulate them, my guess is 75 out of 100 cases, they're going to reject. Now, I've been involved personally with 3 different situations where claims have been rejected more than twice. One of them 4 times it was rejected until it was finally approved. So I guess I'm saying to the viewers out there, don't take no for an answer if you really feel the answer should be yes. Just because they reject once, that does not mean you can't go back and go back and go back. Is that correct?
You also are entitled to a hearing.
Pardon?
You also are entitled to a hearing.
Well, I haven't had to go that far. I mean, just a few nasty phone calls and some threats in a letter with somebody else's name on it that has more power than...
That's what it takes. It's pushing the right button.
As Mary says, an advocacy group. There is strength in numbers.
She hit the nail right on the head. That's
Okay.
exactly what it
You know what, I just want to tell you, there are bills I've introduced that are really simple bills, saying that if you have a month-to-month tendency, and if you were a disabled person, I would want 60 days notice if you were going to have to be evicted rather than the 30 days. Now that sounds pretty simple and reasonable because people with disabilities sometimes need, they have more difficulty finding an apartment that's going to be suitable for them. That is a bill that I can't get the Senate to push. And the same is true with expanding on the parking in retail places where you have several retail stores. I put a bill in that said, it doesn't matter if it's retail stores, it could be a corporate area, it could be just any businesses. And I also have trouble getting those kinds of bills passed. So you need to have the coalition to help all of us, just with the initial concept that it's important to expand the opportunities that you have in place.
If I could just reiterate,
Donna, yes?
the Independent Living Center, it's one of the things we do is we're a grassroots advocacy organization, and we'll help you with the paperwork and try to get things going. And there is an Albany number, and I don't know it off the top of my head, which is an insurance company watchdog that will handle complaints regarding mishandled claims, and it's an Albany number. I don't have it off the top of my head.
But it can be gotten out of a telephone book.
It can be gotten by calling my office.
And your office number is?
355-2030.
That's 355-2020.
Right, that's for voice, and the TTY number is 355-2060.
I have the number.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
That's the fun of that. The number is 1-800-342-3736.
Okay, can you read that again, please, Greg?
1-800-342-3736.
Okay, thank you. We want to move along. We're starting to get some questions. We've already had to eliminate one of our videotape segments tonight to opt for answers from you people. This question came in, and it's unnamed. I presume it's from the city of Port Jervis. Where does one go for a handicap parking sticker? The answer to that is here in Port Jervis. You can go to the police department and see the chief of police or any of the officers that are there for a handicap parking permit, and which is downstairs in this building. So you may want to phone ahead and have one of the police. Oh, it is handicap accessible through the rear door. The police department is handicapped accessible. I would also encourage people that don't live in the city of Port Jervis to contact the police department in your area for a handicap parking permit. And I will also say that we checked with Gary Lapriori, the police chief here in the city of Port Jervis. Presently, there are 432 handicap parking stickers that have been issued to citizens who live in the city of Port Jervis. I would also like to mention that since the 1st of January 1989, there have been 103 tickets issued and collected on for people parking in handicapped parking spaces without the proper license plate or permit. So the police department here is doing their job, and we're glad to see that. Moving right along, we have another telephone number, Section 8. You can reach Section 8, the viewers out there, by dialing the following number. It's 343-0771. If you're calling from Port Jervis or Deer Park, you'd have to add a 1 to that. So it would be 1-343-0771. We have a question from the audience. Barbara.
In regards to handicapped parking, especially when a law is something like the responsibility to ensure any tickets or citations for people illegally parking in a handicapped spot, is there such a thing as you're making a citizen's arrest or writing down the license plate of a car that is illegally handicapped, and then where to go from that point?
Okay, the question for the viewers at home that didn't hear that was that in a mall situation or a retail situation where there are spots set aside for handicapped parking and there is no one there enforcing that because it is private property, what can be done to police that? Can there be a citizen's complaint made? Can there be a citizen's arrest made? Can you copy down a license number? Before I throw that out to the panel, while we were kind of running around town videotaping segments for the show tonight, we received typically very hostile attitudes from people that we went up to and confronted with that. I think we had some videotape, and we asked Chief Lapriori here in the city, if we have a videotape of someone who does not have a sticker, and we've been very thorough in showing the license plate, the front dashboard, up under the visors, there's no indication that there's a permit that's been issued, nor is there a license plate on the car. We asked the chief if we could use that videotape for his department to give a ticket to that person. And he stated if the videotape has a date and time on it, that videotape could be used to issue a ticket to that person, even though there was no police officer there. Now back to your question. In a retail mall environment, is there anything that can be done? Is there a panelist who knows the answer to that question? Greg?
There are some things that can be done. Buffalo did an interesting thing. They basically took volunteers, people who were willing to volunteer as meter maids, I guess you'd call them, to actually issue tickets. To go around whenever they saw a car that was illegally parked, issue a ticket, and was willing to go into court and testify as to time, etc. Not only that, but the police department of the city of Buffalo got behind them and started towing anybody. And that meant municipal vehicles, municipal garbage trucks, whatever it happened to be, and they got towed. And it was $50 to get your car out from being towed. There was a $50 fine. So they attacked their problem in that manner. I'd also add, again, a lot of strange things happen because of the overlapping of laws. A local municipality can enact an ordinance pursuant to New York state law whereby they will enforce handicap parking on private property. Then what happens is the shopping center or what have you then requests that the local police department enforce it on their property. And that's another enforcement mechanism that can be enacted.
Good.
So there's two ways that you might approach the problem.
Good. Thanks very much. I think Ted Blair has something that he'd like to add to that. Ted?
I spoke to a fellow lion from Minnesota this weekend, and this same problem was discussed. And how legal it is, I don't know, but they solved the problem by making large sheets of paper with a message on it and attaching them to the windshield with glue, which took about 15 minutes to scrape off. And it seemed to solve the problem very well. I don't know how legal that would be, but before they would try it.
Well, I'd like to just kind of throw in there, I think a lot of it, and we've mentioned this phrase I don't know how many times this evening, a lot of it is awareness. As I said, we were around town in some of the parking lots in some of the more retail areas in town on numerous occasions, and confronted people. We didn't use those videotape portions tonight because our intention is not to embarrass folks, but just for being there and making a nudge of ourselves so many different times. I was there Saturday at 5:30, and I certainly don't think this is because Access 8 volunteers have been out there taping, but maybe a little of it was. I looked up and down all the handicap spots that were available, Every one of them, and the parking lot was 3/4 full. Every one of those spots was blank except for one. Someone had parked in there, and they did have a handicap plate on the back. And it made me feel real good. Okay? So a lot of that is awareness and just getting the message out. Okay, I have a question for Pierce, and this is from Larry from Port Jervis. And Larry would like to know if there are any productions for people in wheelchairs that will be coming up here in Port Jervis, or how does one get involved with productions that you sponsor with people in wheelchairs, athletic events? I mean,
Is it specifically for athletic events? When you said productions, it sounds like theatrical.
well, I believe, based on your...
If you're interested in getting involved in sports of any nature, you can contact me personally, and that's at area code 717-775-7479.
Once again, that number is?
Area code 717-775-7479. And beyond that, I have information about numerous activities, addresses, telephone numbers, from aerobics to wilderness trail, hiking and stuff like that, mountain climbing in wheelchairs. There's a lot of stuff to do.
Are you involved at all, Pierce, with Handicapped Olympics in any way?
Yes, we are. As a matter of fact, our group is role models for another group that is in New Jersey. They're called Tournament of Champions, and they address the children that are learning disabled and also physically disabled. So our group will go down there and do a hands-on activity with those children. Also, we're involved, I guess you might say, across the country. There's a nationwide network of wheelchair basketball. There's 175 teams in the country that compete and get to the Final Four. It's competition plus. Just like playing on your feet, only more intense.
I also might add, the Independent Living Center sponsors a lot of recreational programs. We have a clinic on September the 30th coming up that's going to be a Learn to Play Wheelchair Tennis Clinic. We also co-sponsor a theater group called Apples and Oranges, which mixes people with varying disabilities together and lets them perform in a theater production, and that meets a couple times a week at the high school in Middletown. We have a lot of different programs running, some athletic, some cultural, and the best thing to do would be to call one of my advocates at my office and find out more information on what kind of programs, social and recreational, that we have going.
Good. Thank you very much. Okay, our next question is a general question. It comes from M in Port Jervis. And the question is, and I guess I'll ask Bob Weiss to comment on this, and it probably will be a very short comment. How do you go about getting Social Security without getting proof from doctors?
You can come in and file an application. We will get the proof from the doctor. In terms of certifying a disability, if the question is coming from the approach that the person has not been to a doctor, it's obviously going to be very difficult. There are some people who just don't believe in going to doctors, or they'll go just when it hurts enough and receive just enough treatment to alleviate pain or what have you. And it is very difficult, since it is a documentation-based program. We do have provision where we will send people for consultative examinations at our expense. But that is not a first resort. That tends towards the last resort. Either that's because there's gaps in their own documentation or documentation is non-existent. And in many cases, a disability can be determined based on one visit to one doctor on one day. That's not the best way to go. That should not, if you are not receiving regular medical treatment, that should not discourage you from, seeking whatever benefits or whatever rights from any organization you may be entitled to.
Good, thank you. What I'd like to do is take a break here for a minute. We have another videotape segment that I'd like to run for our viewers there at home. This was an interview that we conducted with Mike Sicalese, who is the postmaster here in the city of Port Jervis. And I think you'll find it very informative. It includes a lot of the things that the post office is doing to make their services accessible to the handicapped. So if we're ready in the control room, I'd like to bring you this tape segment with an interview with Mike Sicalese, our postmaster here in Port Jervis. If we could have that tape, please. I'm sitting in the Port Jervis post office with the postmaster here in the city of Port Jervis, Mr. Mike Sicalese. What we're going to be discussing right now are some of the programs that the post office does offer for people who do have handicaps. I would like to mention, obviously, you viewers that have been watching the program this evening have seen some videotape segments showing the post office as being very difficult to get into for people with physical handicaps. Certainly we're not poking any fun or pointing any guilty fingers at anybody. That was just part of the awareness program that we're trying to get across this evening. Now, Mike, good morning. How are you?
Steve, how are you?
I want to thank you for being with us this morning and for sharing in our videotape portions for the Handicapped Awareness Program.
It's my pleasure.
As I mentioned to the viewers just a second ago, we did, in one videotape that has already run this evening, we did show that trying to get up the front steps of the post office is impossible for somebody who's in a wheelchair or who has difficulty maneuvering because of problems with their legs. Now, that would lead the viewers to believe that the post office is not handicapped accessible. But you know better than that, don't you?
Right, Steve. There's a ramp in the back of the building. There's a parking space and a ramp. If the customer feels that the ramp might be a little bit too steep for them to negotiate, all they have to do is just give us a call before they're coming down, and myself, a supervisor, or somebody else would be more than glad to meet them outside.
Now, is there a bell or something that they could ring once they get here?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Well, there's some good news for you viewers out there that possibly have handicaps. As Mike just pointed out, there is a ramp at the rear of the post office, and should you be coming down in a wheelchair and maybe need some assistance, you can phone ahead and talk to you, Mike, or someone that's here?
Sure, myself, the supervisor, anyone of the employees would be more than glad to help out.
And also, if you're here unannounced, so to speak, if you haven't had the opportunity to phone down, there is a bell at the rear of the post office by the entry door at the top of that ramp that you could ring and get access inside the post office.
Right.
That's something that I don't think many people were aware of.
No, honestly, Steve, I don't believe people were. No.
Well, that's one thing that we hope to accomplish this evening with our program, is to point out to some of the people with physical handicaps
Right.
some of the things that have been done recently or are available that maybe they weren't aware of. Now, you mentioned you have a stamp by mail program. Maybe for the viewers at home, you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Sure. The Stamp by Mail program was instituted about a year ago nationwide throughout the post office. And what it is we have an envelope available to any customer by request from their letter carrier. All they have to do is fill out the order blank and close a check. Postage is prepaid on it, and just hand it back to the carrier or drop it in any collection box, their mailbox, and we'll fill that order and send it out the next day. However, to elaborate on that a little bit further, if you call us before 9 o'clock in the morning and you get anybody that picks up the phone, tell them that you want stamps that day, we will fill that order that day. The carrier will bring it out to you with this envelope. So the next time you require stamps, all you have to do is just sign a check and put it in the envelope.
So there will be a postage-paid envelope delivered with the stamps that they have ordered.
Right, so the next time they don't have to call.
Would you recommend that the person that would be phoning in to purchase stamps on your stamp by mail program have the exact change?
No, we'll take a check.
Okay.
That's no problem. No matter what you need, just write the check out for it and we'll take it.
Now, I'm sure most of our viewers that do have handicaps are aware that they can just deposit mail in their outgoing box at home rather than come to the post office.
I hope they are. They can put it in their mailbox, and as long as the carrier has a delivery for them, the carrier will be more than glad to pick it up. If the carrier doesn't have a delivery for them, all they have to do is put it in an obvious place where he can see it from the sidewalk, and he'll pick it up with no problem.
Or they could also phone in the morning, could they? And mention that they do have a pickup.
Absolutely.
And the carrier would be notified?
Sure, absolutely.
But that'd have to be pretty early, wouldn't it? Because
Before 9 o'clock. Usually the carriers leave between 9 and 9:30. So all the messages come before 9. We can't fail.
Okay, I'm going to paint a little scenario very quickly. I have a physical handicap. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm not able to get out of my house. The friends that I normally ride with aren't available on a certain day, and I have a package that has to be shipped parcel post that's, larger than a bread box, so to speak. How would we handle postage on a
Again,
situation
just
like that?
call us up. We'll take it down, we'll weigh it, rate it, and get back to you how much it's going to be, and then you can just mail us the check, and then we'll send it out when we get the check.
You're making life very easy for people with handicaps down here.
Postal service is a service. We're here to serve the public, you guys. That's our main job, is to serve you.
Are there any other things that, as long as we have you on tape and we're taking the time this morning, that you'd like to mention or brag about relative to the Postal Service?
Sure, absolutely. Through the efforts of the Handicapped Committee, the Police Chief Gary Rapiori, myself, and Mayor Roberts, we were able to move the present drive-in box down by Grab Point closer to the corner, so the people won't have to jockey in, and it was brought to our attention that they had to make excessive maneuvers to get to the box because of a line problem or something on the road.
Mhm.
So what we did, we all got together and we decided to move it closer to the corner so that access is just drive in and drive out. Additionally, through the committee, again, myself and Police Chief Gary Rapiori, we're able to institute a second drive-up box. It's right across from Intercounty Savings Bank on South Broome Street. It'll be in place, in service the week of September 18th.
Okay, because we're airing this program on the 18th, so you're saying as of the airing of this?
Sometime during that week, we have to pull a box. We have the proper equipment downstairs to reshape the box and place it, and then the box that we have up, out there, we have to turn around and put where the special boxes that are able to take this equipment. Not everyone has it. We went out and found one out in the street. Now we have to change it around. But it'll be in place sometime the week of September 18th.
Yeah, I noticed, I think it was just a couple of days ago, I was coming through town, and that box right over here on Grab Point, I don't know if it was one of your guys or one of the guys from the city was out there. They had already removed it from the foundation, and we're moving it further up the street and a little closer.
That was Mike Solitro
Okay.
from our office, yeah. Mike went out and moved the box closer to the corner.
Okay, anything else you want to mention to the viewers while you have the opportunity?
Not that I can think of, Steve. Just we're more than happy to help you out any way we can.
Okay, so if we can just kind of reiterate a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, there is a ramp at the rear of the post office that can be used for people who have, for example, wheelchairs or people who have disabilities where they can't negotiate stairs. And as Mike pointed out to you people, should you have difficulty negotiating that ramp, you can always call ahead or contact somebody here at the post office, and they will meet you outside and help you navigate and get up to the top and ultimately get into the post office. Secondly, as Mike pointed out, there is a stamp-by-mail program whereby you can purchase stamps through the mail, have them delivered to you, also delivered with a postage-free envelope that you can use for your next order or future orders to purchase mail. Thirdly, as far as parcel post, if you have anything that's large, bulky, something that maybe won't fit in your mailbox and you need postage for and to have it shipped, you can contact anyone here at the post office, and any one of the postal employees would be very glad to make sure that that's picked up for you, weighed, rated, and then once you would pay, they could also mail that for you. And last but not least, there will be, as of the airing of this or sometime this week, 2 mail drops that you can use without getting out of your automobile. One down here at Grab Point, which has been here for quite a while, and the other one which is going to be up by Intercounty Savings Bank on South Broome? South Broome Street, and that should be in place sometime this week. Well, I'm glad to see that the Postal Service is conscious of all these things. Is this part of training that a postmaster would go through?
More or less, yeah. It's just community awareness, what's brought to your attention, what you see. It's part of the community, part of the job.
Well, good. I'm glad you took the time to share some of these things with us this morning, Mike. I thank you very much.
Sure, Steve.
I'd like to thank also Dick Gill, who is a member of Access 8 and standing here in front of me running the camera in his postal outfit. If you need any special favors, call Mike or call Gilly down here at the post office, those of you with handicaps. Right now, let's get back to the phone-in. Thanks very much. We'll see you soon. I'd like to thank Mike Sicalese for the time that he took to conduct that interview with me, and I hope that was very informative to all you viewers out there relative to things that are being done around the community that we might not all be aware of. And certainly, as Mike mentioned, the Postal Service does have some programs that can help the handicapped people with situations relative to mail. I'd like to also mention, ladies and gentlemen, that for right now, for this evening, we ask that you don't call in. We have plenty of questions that we still want to try to address. We were just sitting here during that videotape portion realizing that with the number of questions that we've gotten tonight, it certainly would be incumbent upon us to have a sequel to this. so that we can answer more questions. And I think at this point, we can say that we do commit to that. I can't give you a date at this point, but we hope that this is just one of a series of programs relative to problems that the handicapped people face and what can be done to solve those problems for the handicapped. What I'd like to do right now, before I get back to the questions, is make one apology to the viewers out there and possibly to certain of the panelists here this evening. I've been using a term this evening that I shouldn't be using, and that term is politician. And it was pointed out to me that there is a difference between politicians and legislators. And from this point on in the program, I will use the term legislator, since politician has a negative connotation that a politician is someone who is out for themselves. And certainly there is no one that fits that description in this room tonight. So they are legislators, not politicians, and that's my error. Now we'll get back to the questions with the panel that we have here. This question is directed to Bob Weiss from Social Security. It is from Vicki in Cutterbackville, Bob. Vicki says that she has a son who is 1 year old. He has no sight, or I'm sorry, this goes to Bob or Ted, I would think. A son 1 year old, that son has no sight in one eye and is legally blind in the other. They applied to Social Security, but they have been denied because the husband makes too much money. What does the father's income have to do with benefits that possibly could be received from Social Security? Robert?
Well, at the Social Security office, we administer a few benefits, not just Social Security benefits. That would be less confusing if the programs were in separate buildings, but they're not. We do have the Social Security program, which most people are familiar with. We have Medicare, which most people are familiar with. We also administer the SSI program. The SSI program is not paid for by Social Security trust funds. It is paid for by general revenues. The SSI program was created in 1974 as a federalization of state programs for aid to the aged, blind, and disabled. And it is an assistance program for people in those categories with little income or assets. It does apply to children who are 1 year old. Like I said, it's aged, blind, or disabled, so it's a lifelong protection. But it is a safety net program. It is not a contributory program. When there is a child in the household with the parents, we do consider the parents' income in determining the eligibility of that child. If there is a husband and a wife, if one or the other is disabled, we will consider the income of the other to determine whether the person is eligible. In this case, it appears no disability decision was made because the initial information about income was enough to make that decision. If the circumstances change with your family income and family assets, by all means contact us again, and we'd be more than happy to follow through with another application at that time. But I have to reemphasize, the SSI program, which I'm pretty sure you're referring to, is not part of the Social Security Trust Funds. It is a safety net program.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd also like to clarify for the viewers out there, we did mention in the last live segment when we were on that if you were interested in coming down to get a permit, a parking permit, a handicap parking permit, that you could come down to the police station here, and it is accessible, that there is a ramp in the rear of the building. I've been told since then that there is a bell in the back, and the best thing to do, first of all, is to phone ahead and talk to one of the officers at the desk and let them know when you'll be coming down, and someone can be there to help you to get in. Or there is a bell, a ringer at the back of the building, and if you get that far without having made a telephone call, that you can push that bell and someone will come out and answer it and assist you into the building so that you can get your business taken care of here. Okay? Because I believe there is just one small step outside that you might need some assistance for.
Steve, adding to what Bob said pertaining to Vicki's question, if she were to contact me and give me more particulars, if she falls in the parameters of our Lions services, we would certainly do everything within our power because that's what we are there for. If there are specific needs which are not covered through social services and so forth, and the parameters fall into place, we would do everything within our power and at least try to get it into the proper channels because that's what we're there for.
Good. Thanks, Ted. Thank you. Okay, our next question comes from Linda from Port Jervis, and Linda has a question for Greg. Greg, in Linda's situation, we're talking workman's compensation, that there is no time limit for the insurance company to reimburse a claimant for out-of-pocket money. She wants to know, is there a law that establishes a time period by which an insurance company has to respond to a claimant? And if there is no law, can anything be done to get one enacted? And maybe Mary could pick up the balance of that if appropriate.
I don't believe there's a law. I believe that there are regulations that exist in the state of New York. You're hitting me in an area that I have very little knowledge in. But again, if you call our 800 number, we do have a girl who will answer, may not answer the phone, which is in the phone room, or what we call the information referral room, who will put you in contact with the right people and can tell you exactly what the time frames are.
And when it comes to legislation, again, some of the agencies interpret the legislation and make their own policy, but if in fact it's legislation that people are looking for, then again we go back to what I had said in the beginning, is the advocacy groups, the coalitions, to be able to prove their point so that legislators then can feel comfortable drafting the legislation and then trying to get it passed. But you really need the support. You can't have 2 or 3 people calling a senator and saying we need the legislation. You have to have more demand. So just with the calls that have come in tonight, obviously there are a lot of people who are very concerned. So in terms of legislation and people that feel that we need added legislation, you really have a good pool of resources right here in this area to work from.
Well, basically, legislators are reactive rather than proactive.
Yes,
Am I correct?
a lot
And they
of
have to
times
hear
that's true, because we hear the problems of the people, and then we try to correct it, or we try to do something to address those needs. So yes, that's absolutely so. And in a situation like this, we find more and more people now in a situation, and certainly people on this panel have talked about how you come to be in a situation like that, even with the aging process. So it does affect more people, so it should be popular to get involved and support legislation.
And speaking of getting involved, for the viewers out there, you can get involved. One way you can do it right here in the city of Fort Jervis is to attend the Handicapped Commission meetings. And as I said earlier in the program, those Handicapped Commission meetings are conducted on the second Tuesday of every month, and those meetings are held at the Farnham Building at the end of Ulster Place, right there where Heritage Days is conducted every year. And I'm sure the people on that Handicapped Commission would be more than glad to welcome you to the meeting, to listen to some of your situations, and possibly to establish priorities for local legislators to get things done. But as Mary McPhillips has pointed out, and other panelists have pointed out tonight, there certainly is response in numbers. So try to get together with people of similar problems so that more voices other than 1 or 2 are heard. Okay. Moving back to our panel, we have a couple of questions. This is to Mary McPhillips, and this is from Linda in Port Jervis. And Linda wants to know when the county is going to provide education for deaf children. And we have a second part to this question that I'd ask of Donna Miller, but, well, maybe I'll throw it out, Donna, so that you can think about it for a second. The second part of that is, do you think, Donna, that you'd ever be working on TTY for deaf that are visiting the county? This is basically, we have a lot of resort people that come through because of the river and other recreational programs that we have. I guess the question basically is, do you think that that you would ever be working on something for TTY for deaf visiting the county? So I'll go back to that first question. Mary, I'm not sure that's in your realm, but when is the county going to provide education for deaf children? I think they are.
They have to do that now. I mean, we're talking about access for any kind of disabilities that the state is saying that we want to make sure that all of our children have an opportunity for public education. A lot of times we get involved in transportation. If we haven't got the facility right here, then we should be providing the transportation to the facility of, even if it's a non-public school, of the parent's choice.
Can I also make a statement that if a child who happens to be hearing impaired needs services, as long as it's written into the child's IEP, then the education system has to take the recommendations of the IEP into consideration and provide that service if it's documented that the child needs it to attend mainstream school.
Thank you. And Ray, you're with the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. Does this kind of touch on some of the services that your office provides?
In a rather indirect way, Steve, but in the sense that we're part of the state education department, and is a law that involves education of all individuals up to and including age 21 who have a disabling condition and are identified as such. And the committees on special education in each of the school districts have the responsibility to work with the parents and